Is that permissible?
Top of the morning to you for the first time in 2020. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We weren't here yesterday. It was nice to have the day off, I'll be honest.
It really was. If there was ever a day to have off, it is definitely January 1st.
What time did you go to bed on New Year's?
3:30.
I was like 4:30 here.
Good
I couldn't
for you
sleep.
guys.
Well, when you invert your schedule like that, your body's like 4:30 is awake time, and so
Right.
like it was impossible for me to fall to sleep after.
Yeah, I got the second wind at 2:20
Right.
when I would have woken up for work. I was like, yes.
Yeah.
But the champagne was already gone.
You know
so
what
I was
helped?
like, all right.
2 grilled cheese sandwiches.
Oh, that always helps.
Knocked
put
me
you
right
to
out.
bed.
Nice treat.
Carb load.
You
I
can
like
have
it.
a warm glass of.
The cheese is binding.
Yes, yeah, quite. So what time did you guys go to bed?
Right around midnight. Like I wanted to go
You
to
made it,
bed. I actually fell asleep on the couch for a little bit. I was so tired after working. The kids just would not go to sleep. They were so excited, which was
Just
fine.
like love the
Yeah.
fireworks and everything like that.
I totally wanted to do the New York time, but yeah, it didn't happen.
I'm the lamest. I was in bed by 8.
That's not
And-
lame. That's responsible.
And then I woke up at
amazing.
like 5 a.m. the next morning to work out before I worked out doing some shopping at Dillard's. So,
Oh, yeah.
Did you post any selfies of your workout at 5 a.m. on New Year's?
No.
Even better. Round of applause. Not to say that those of you, listen, if it helps you stay
motivated.
Yeah, right.
Right,
Then
right.
great, good for you. But also, just know that we're all silently judging you a little bit when you're doing this at the gym.
At 5 a.m., you're rubbing it in.
Yeah, you are. You're rubbing
You're
it in.
better than me, and I know it, and I don't want to know it.
Good for you, but don't.
I'm like, Rachel, you gonna join me at the sales?
No.
I hear nothing till noon. Now I'm up.
I was like, she's like, oh, I'm here. Just let me know when you're. I'm like, girl, I just got out of bed, so I will not be there. I did go later that day, and it was a zoo. I mean, they had some great deals.
I'm surprised they had anything left by the time you showed up. The first
yeah,
hour or two,
seriously.
wipe the
It was
slate
awesome.
clean.
It's a good time to Christmas shop if you didn't buy people gifts.
For those of you who watch the show often, you know I'm a University of Michigan alum. So my goal on New Year's Day was just to wake up by 11 a.m.
Right.
when the game kicked off, and I didn't make it. It's like 11:15.
And then it didn't go well, right?
Oh, no, thanks for that reminder. Yeah,
I
no,
think
it was great.
Alabama
It was
won.
Fantastic. Michigan didn't score in the second half.
It's okay. My
Moving
parlay
on,
bet didn't work.
all 292 of you watching us live this morning, we appreciate that.
Good morning.
We've got some heated topics to discuss, which might be why the viewership is so unusually large today. Also, probably because a lot of you are back at work and killing time at your
morning.
desks. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we like you guys.
So topic number 1 of 2 that are going to have us yakking on the couch this morning. A new policy being instituted by U-Haul starting February 1st. They're going to stop hiring people who use nicotine. And we want to hear from you this morning. Should companies be allowed to do this? Refuse to hire workers who use nicotine products, whether it's cigarettes or vaping devices. So U-Haul is going to stop hiring nicotine users in 21 states starting next month, including here in Arizona. So not only does the company plan to question its applicants about their tobacco use when they apply, but they'll also be testing employees in the states where testing is legal. U-Haul says this is all about improving health and reducing health care costs.
So see, they do say that. So it's interesting. We posted this, and it had so many people talking. In fact, I'm not even in the comment section of our Facebook Live right now. There's 789 comments in the initial post that we put up to get the conversation going. So thank you to everybody who commented. Nobody's wrong here. It's very interesting to hear both sides of things. We did mention that it is a private company, so can they do whatever they want? And you choose to work for that company. You follow the rules, whether it be on the clock or not. It's kind of tough to say because in your personal world, if it's not affecting your job or your job productivity, then who's to say you shouldn't be allowed to do it? So it's interesting, both sides of it.
You guys want to dive into this pool first, and then we'll get to some of the comments?
And I was just going to say, just to be clear, so they don't want their employees smoking on their
At all.
personal time
Correct.
or at work, right? Okay, because some are chiming in about, hey, you know, our work is a smoke-free zone and all that
Sure.
kind of thing. And so that's
this is
one take,
beyond.
but this is beyond that.
Yeah,
This
this is an
another
entirely
level.
different level.
You can't smoke at all, like home. Okay.
Crazy to think that you
Yeah.
can just strike it out completely and say, no, you can't. But
I definitely understand and see the benefit of at work not allowing it.
Sure.
I don't know how that would
Beyond.
go over and being forced and all
Apparently,
that.
there's a
beyond that.
saliva test that would indicate. I'm not sure exactly what the margin of error is for that test. If someone knows or has taken one, feel free to sound off in the comments.
And all that testing's got to cost money and needs
A drug test typically is between $30 and $50
Okay.
a cost to the company per drug test they issue. In fact, there's something I read an article the other day. I couldn't find it this morning when I was looking for a source, but companies in the United States, about 15% less are actually drug testing at all than they were a decade ago. Part of that has to do with the fact that marijuana is now legal in some capacity
Yeah,
in
there's
33
kind of a-
different states.
Yeah.
It's tougher to find applicants too. Right now, unemployment is at near record lows. And so there's a huge number of jobs for the people who would technically be qualified to do them. So companies are generally doing more, not less, to attract talent. This policy seems regressive in that regard.
well, it's interesting because we had a few viewers chime in and say, what's next? You know, if you're overweight, now you're not
Sure.
going to be able to work for a specific company.
That's a health concern.
And that's a health concern. And so it's like, well, are you going to tell people you can't have pizza, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because it could be a health concern if, you know, you start to pack on pounds and then your health insurance and so on and so forth. So where does it end? If you start implementing this with a legal substance, where does it go from here? So that's what people are asking too.
I joked on the show this morning, if 12 News do what my typical Taco Bell order looked like, they probably wouldn't offer me health insurance.
We like the big buck box. What's the difference?
Oh, no, I spend a little more than that, but I appreciate it. Lillian says, I think that's wrong. Smokers have rights, but Brian contends it's their company and they can hire whoever they want. I'd be interested to see what this does to their possible field of applicants. And another question that we brought up on the show this morning is what happens to somebody who quits smoking and then picks it back up? Because it's one of those habits that people who do quit don't always stay off of the bandwagon.
Yeah,
They jump on and off. What happens if you start at U-Haul as a non-smoker and then pick the habit up? Are they going to test intermittently? What if they find out you're smoking? Is it a 3 strikes policy? Do they fire you on the spot? I don't know.
All good questions, and I was asking specifically if the people who already work there and maybe have for several years, maybe even decades, okay, they smoke and they know Ron smokes or Rebecca smokes, and so are they just, boom, they're cut, you're done here, you don't work here anymore unless you quit and you have proof that you quit and we're going to test you to make sure that you quit. I mean, it's crazy to think. I agree within the facility's general area, you don't, I mean, Ryan Cody said they fill up propane tanks over there.
They do.
For
Yeah, you
good
don't wanna be
reason not to
smoking at a
allow
U-Haul.
smoking on site.
Sure.
But beyond that, you go home and you're stressed out at the end of the day and that's your vice and it's legal and, you know, you're not hurting anybody but yourself.
Well, let it be known, as we mentioned at the top of the show, that this is a private company and they can legally do this. They can do whatever they want in terms of hiring people, as long as it's not gender or race discrimination, as far as I understand. But it is a slippery slope for me because there are other bad habits that you could theoretically police. I'm not saying that they would ever do this, but what about caffeine use? It's another addictive drug. If I don't have caffeine every morning, I'll have a migraine that'll shut me down for the rest of the day. I rely on that drug. Just like a nicotine user is addicted to their substance of choice. What about alcohol? What about gambling? What about other addicts and vices? I think you just have to draw a line somewhere. And I'm not sure that this is the place to draw the line. Rebecca says they do this at Banner Health, the Yard, all non-smoking there. Sean, though, says this is just out-and-out discrimination, and Danielle agrees. John's talking about firing John Harbaugh at Michigan. Back on that for a second. I don't think it's time to fire John Harbaugh, even though he can't seem to win a game against his rivals or against top 15 opponents
In
at
any
road or
level
neutral
of
site.
football.
Michigan has lost 15 straight against top 15 opponents at road or neutral sites, by the way, dating back to the Citrus Bowl in 2008.
Wow.
Not great.
Then
Gonna
let's
make me
talk
want to
about
start
Harbaugh.
smoking.
Let's talk about Marlboro a little bit more, not Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that if it's a private company and they're allowed to do whatever they want and you don't agree with it, then you don't work there. You work somewhere else.
Jennifer says-
right? As a simple answer that a lot of people have been saying, if you don't like it, don't work for them.
Yeah, Jennifer is a top fan of the show. We appreciate that. Jennifer stopping by every morning to watch with us. She says, I don't smoke, but I think this is wrong. People can do what they want as long as they do good work. Some people in the comments have brought up work productivity. And I think that's a non-starter in this argument. We were talking about this off camera just before the show started. everyone wastes time at work. And I understand that smoke breaks are a different entity and that people are outside using a vice as opposed to actually being productive. But there are just as many of us who are sitting on the toilet at work, scrolling through Facebook for 20 minutes, or clicking around in internet browsers. Listen, wasting time at work or productivity, I don't think that's a part of this discussion. I think this is a healthcare thing. This is a private company thing, choosing to choose what sort of employees they want to attract. I think that's where that discussion goes. And it can be a discussion about civil liberties and about personal rights and what you can do in your off time. But if you want to bring in like the wasting time at work thing, I think that's a whole nother argument. That begets an argument about a 40-hour work week or a 5-day work week. Is that necessary in 2020 with the technological advances we have? I think that's another argument.
John says, good for you, Hall, because he says that his sister smoked for most of her life, and unfortunately she died last October. I'm sorry about that, John. He said that he tried to talk to her to stop smoking, but she only quit when she found out she became sick.
Now, I wonder, because U-Haul apparently has programs in place to help people stop smoking, so I wonder if they implemented those programs and maybe the programs didn't have enough of an effect, so now they're taking a different approach to something they already tried to curb and they didn't have success with that. So now they're like, okay, well, we were serious about people stopping smoking, so now we're not even going to hire people who do it, so we don't have to worry about whether or not they're going to quit or whatever. Maybe there was an incident that ruined it for everybody, right? We know rules get implemented once one person does something that creates a problem that everybody then suffers.
Now, none of us smoke, correct?
No.
So just so you know where our own biases are coming from, we don't smoke. That said,
I think one thing we need to remember is people are saying, well, let me do what I want. It doesn't affect anybody else.
Sure.
I got to say, I hate every day when I walk out of this building and I have to walk by the people who smoke outside of a local place next door, and that's their area designated. Well, I don't want your secondhand smoke. And yes, what you do does affect me because it has absolutely been proven that secondhand, thirdhand smoke. What about all the kids out there who are subject to it that don't want to be? Now, again, I don't know that like U-Haul should be doing this or not. There's definitely a lot of unanswered questions here, but for people to say, oh, well, this doesn't affect you, I get so angry when I'm in line and people are smoking in a public place and I'm breathing it and my children are breathing it. It's like downwind. I have family members who have died from smoking.
Right. So seeing it starts to get personal for other people who are being asked.
Just careful saying it doesn't affect others.
That's what Laura says, too. She says, I don't want my place of employment or even my U-Hauls to smell like cigarettes. My mom smokes still. Every time I go home for the holidays, it just ravages my sinuses because I'm not used to living in a house where there's smoke.
Right.
One night in that house, and I feel like crap for days afterwards. And it's so strange going from the two extremes of a smoke-free environment to a place where smoking is constant. It is awful. I don't think any of us are arguing on behalf of the big tobacco companies. I don't think any of us are arguing that we are encouraging you to smoke on the job or anything like that. It's just I think that U-Haul is taking a step further, and it might be viewed as a regressive policy in a time where drug testing is a lot less common than it used to be, and especially because this is not an illegal substance. It is a substance that is now only legal to 21-year-olds. The tobacco age was 18 until very recently. But it does kind of step into that personal versus professional life.
They could have easily just taken it from the programs that help you quit smoking to you're no longer allowed to smoke in the facilities or while you're on the clock. No more smoke breaks. You do your 8 hours and then you go home and there you can do whatever. Have it on the way home or whatever. That would have been an interesting next step versus this huge jump to you can't do it at all. And how many employees do they currently have on staff who smoke? And are they just going to fire them and say sorry, like,
well, and I think
quit
it's like,
or no?
It's like you said, it's a private company. Let them try it. Let them see how it goes. Let them see how the employees react. We have other companies who have stood up for things politically in the news, and everyone's, I'm going to boycott. I'm not eating there. I'm not shopping there.
We have a couple saying that in the comments. We're not going to use U-Haul anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, Pinsky's like, all right.
I can think of one restaurant chain in particular that dominates and is closed on Sundays. And
they still kill it. They only are open 6 days a week.
Don't work there. Go get another job. Don't eat that food. Go eat somewhere else.
All right, don't rent that truck.
Todd wants to know,
see how it goes.
Does this mean U-Haul won't rent to nicotine users?
Well, so now there's an interesting.
Well, no,
I doubt
because because they're giving the money. So that's an entirely different thing. And money's a big part of this. When Ryan did this segment on Today in AZ this morning, he brought up healthcare costs. And those of you who have taken a new job recently know that when you apply for health insurance that's provided by your employer, there's a questionnaire that comes along with it. And one of the questions they always ask is whether or not you use nicotine products. And if you click that box, your costs go up pretty significantly, depending upon your age and your medical history, 30, 40% in my experience. So a lot of smokers just don't tick that box because there's no testing. There's no way your employer would know if you're a smoker or not. And U-Haul is preventing that from becoming a thing by testing for nicotine in the states in which it's legal to do so. I would have to do a quick Google search to see how long nicotine stays in one's saliva. It's a saliva test, by the way, not a hair test.
I mean, think of a chain smoker. It's probably always just...
But here's the thing. Drug tests are just asshole tests. That's all they are. Because if you are a smoker, you take every means necessary not to fail that drug test if you want the job, right? It doesn't really prevent drug use in any form, whether it's you're talking about party drugs like Molly or you're talking about acid or LSD or cocaine or weed. You can find ways to circumvent the drug test to get the job. And I imagine if someone was a chronic smoker, they would do everything they can to get around that drug test part of it. But I guess it's another hurdle to clear if you are trying to cut down on healthcare costs.
I'm surprised that they're able to do that, but I guess.
All right, guys, we got one more topic to get to this morning. A lot of you are revved up about this one in the comments because you heard us tease it on the show this morning. We appreciate you watching and paying close attention. One of them, Jennifer Vance, who is so upset as a rocker that Billboard has put 3 Imagine Dragons songs at the top of the rock songs of the decade list. Look at them right there. Believer, Thunder, and Radioactive, the top 3 rock songs of the decade. Are you kidding me right now? Read some of the other ones on the list here, Rachel. I got to go get my notepad because I took some detailed notes on the show.
Get the notepad. You can see the rest of the list. Stressed Out's on there. There's 3 21 Pilots songs as well. And I'm thinking when we're doing the top 10 and there's 2 bands that take over 6 of the 10 spots.
Not great.
That's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
And I know that the 2010s decade wasn't the most robust when it comes to rock music.
That's a nice way of putting it.
But I mean, come on. This is an overtaking here.
I don't know. I like these songs.
I love the songs.
I do like these songs, but they don't scream rock to me.
That's the point.
Yeah, I guess.
They don't scream rock, period. They're
Imagine
more
Dragons is so
It's like
talented.
rock pop, right?
So good, but yeah.
Imagine Dragons is rock pop. Lumineers is folk. Panic at the Disco is kind of like emo rock, quite
I think
honestly.
so too. That's what,
and you're right. So 2010 is not super robust for rock music, but that said, there are a lot of really worthy additions to this list that didn't make the list.
Here we go.
So before I dive into that,
I love it.
I did a quick Google search on how Billboard used it's a metric to generate this list. And supposedly it was just the number of records bought, streamed, or played on the radio.
Okay.
So they're not judging the merits of any of those songs. It's just these are the ones that people downloaded the most or bought the most.
But
or
played
listened
on the
to
radio,
most.
what's decided, what goes on the radio is decided by like literally 2 companies, if not 2 people, that goes on every radio station. And I learned that the hard way once upon a time. But so that's interesting. So really it's coming down to people.
That said, the 2010s did have some pretty good rock acts that are not in this top 10. Most of the bands I'm about to name are not in the top 50 at all. A couple of them have 1 slot, like the Foo Fighters, for example, which are still making new music, by the way. All of these bands made new music in the 2010s, but are not on that list. Foo Fighters came in at number 16, by the way. Foo Fighters, Black Keys, Muse, Bush, Linkin Park, Hailstorm, Avenged Sevenfold, Dead Sarah, Evanescence, Rise Against, Green Day, The Struts, Tool, 9 Inch Nails, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Highly Suspect, Queens of the Stone Age, plus even bands that I don't particularly like, but I'll rattle them off for you. Disturbed is another one. That's not my genre of music, but that said, they're still rockers. If it has auto-tune in it, it's not a rock song.
Well, and you were saying that less and less people actually know how to play the guitar. So
less know how to play it well.
Less know how to play it well.
I don't know how to play it at all. So
we thought that all of those bands that you just rattled off stopped making music in 2007. So.
Right, because I'm like, I listened to all that in high school, the Foo Fighters, Linkin Park, even Evanescence. I love Evanescence, loved all their stuff.
Yeah, but Bring Me to Life, when did that come out? Like 2006?
I didn't think that they had new, very relevant songs, at least, that most people that know of, because I didn't know.
Maybe like they're on the all-time best.
John says, well, I'm a boomer, so who are all these groups you're talking about?
My dad would say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He's like, Beach Boys isn't on that list.
Yeah.
Like, no, Dad.
Someone else, Lucinda, clamoring for AC/DC. Did they make new music in the 2010s? That can't be possible,
I don't think
can
so.
it?
The Rolling Stones are still touring.
Yeah,
What do you call them?
Hanging in there.
Rolling bones.
I have not said that, but I like that.
Which, good for them. Make that money while you can, I swear.
Claudia says, good morning to everybody. Tremaine Miller says, rock songs, who's controlling this BS?
Yeah.
I'm with you on that, Tremaine, because I think there is some cross-pollination when it comes to genres, but this is just a little too extreme for me. And I'm not saying that the Lumineers or Imagine Dragons don't even deserve a spot in the top 10, because if you want to just base it on popularity, yes, they do. And I'm not saying that any of these songs are even necessarily bad. I just don't think they're the top 10 rock songs of the decade.
Yeah,
Radioactive. I can't even listen to that song.
Do they have a pop list or like a pop rock?
Sure, there's a million.
I'm sure there are. You're putting me on the spot here.
I
don't
know.
off the top of my
Sorry,
head,
I didn't do my research
But there's probably
either.
I mean, because as soon as I saw this, I was like, oh, what about like Adele with "Hello" was like a huge song. But that's, I mean, we're talking about different genres of music, but like all the Taylor Swift songs.
Right.
Now those are pop.
Well, sure, but like,
Well, but then you
we
think
need to
about
talk
Taylor-
about the top songs of the decade, not just.
I was thinking
what
about
people
her.
say is rock.
You know, she might make a country list, and she
a pop
started
list
off
and
there, but now she's more pop. I feel like
Yeah.
than anything. Which, whatever, she's great either way. But yeah,
I like them all.
little more clarification.
Rick chiming in to say, Tool! Exclamation point.
Tool.
Right?
Oh,
How good
yeah.
was that new album,
Yeah,
by the way?
yeah.
Tool releasing new music for the first time in a long time this year. I'm a fan. You don't have to be. That's fine. It's not
they're
for everybody,
talented.
but that's all right. Other bands on this list, by the way, not just in the top 10, but also bands that I would not consider rock by definition. Lorde was on the top 50.
Oh, really?
Hosier was on the top 50. Hosier at least has some guitar in
Yeah.
it. Bastille, which I would say is electronica or pop. I would not say rock. Fun. Well, I love Fun. I love Nate Roos. I love the band. I just
It
rock?
originated here.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know that.
is the genre of rock changing? Like the definition of it?
I think so.
Maybe.
I just feel like it might even be the opposite of that, where like rock is not changing, but rock's mainstream appeal is lessening.
Yeah.
Where I mean, can you think of like a rock station in the Valley? What's the rock station?
It's 98.7.
But-
KUPD.
But is there one or are there two?
I only do KUPD. That's just the only.
Is it
that the same
rock
one we
or
just
is it
said,
like
98.7?
alternative? Because I feel like a lot of stations skew more toward the alternative than they do the actual rock.
See, and-
That's where you hear the 21 Pilots songs all the time, or on
and
the
Tool
alt stations.
and Disturbed. They play all of those.
Okay,
on
all right.
KUPD.
So correct. I might be wrong. I don't listen to the radio anymore.
But yeah,
I've
like
got
one,
Spotify.
probably
but-
generally one.
But so like wouldn't this is where it's like what's the definition of rock? See, I would think personally that like alternative falls into that rock category.
Alternative would be a subset of rock for sure.
So then those could make I don't know.
Hey Siri,
I know.
play a rock song.
Let's see what she comes up with.
Now playing rock radio.
Fools.
Fools is a rock band. Okay, you got to cut it off within 10 seconds, or else we're going to get in trouble with the law.
I took it off.
Well done.
That's tricky.
KSLX, is that those are the call letters? That's what
KSLX.
Maria says there. Yeah. John says, I agree. Too many of these are pop groups, not rock and roll. Lucinda says, everything is so computerized now these days that people get confused with what is what. Real rock, you need to go back in time for.
Yeah.
Imagine Dragons, by the way, guess how many songs they had in the top 50?
Probably 10.
8.
Wow.
8 of the top
Is
50
Bad Liar
Imagine
in there?
Dragons songs.
Because I'm a bad liar.
You guys want an internet rabbit hole to dive down before we end the show? There is a such thing as the Imagine Dragons curse. Google it and you'll find some articles written about it. The Las Vegas Golden Knights, an NHL team in their expansion year, went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. They had Imagine Dragons play at center ice before their first home playoff game. They then lost 8 of the next 9. 9 games in regulation without a win after Imagine Dragons played. They lost the Stanley Cup final, got off to an awful start the next year. I'm just saying.
So there's an Imagine Dragons curse.
There is.
There's a T Swift one at the Lakers Staples
Speaking
Center.
of drug use, is Imagine Dragons not the best like stoner name for a group ever?
Imagine
Bro.
Dragons.
What a way to tie it all
I
together.
wouldn't know.
His
to be
dragon's
honest with
name
you.
was Puff. Fucker.
She said Fokker, by the way. That was from Meet the
That's
Parents.
100%.
Don't call the FCC. All right, we got to get out of here, guys. More today in AZ After Show tomorrow, 7:30 on the couch. Thanks to all of you who stuck with us this morning. Good debate.
Puff the Magic Dragon.
Is that rock? Peter, Paul, and Mary? Is that rock? I don't know.
Peter, Paul,
I don't know
and Mary.
anymore. My world has been turned upside down.
It's been turned.
Be good, people. We'll see you.